Good morning. How are you? Good morning, Mika. Hey, you made it. You made it. You made it. You made it. How is everyone this morning? I'm going to try and do a hybrid here. Hey, Liz. How are you this morning? I don't know if it's going to work. If you guys already know that my internet sometimes don't want me to be great. Mika, are you at work, huh? Hey, Michelle. Good morning. I can't see the names. Is everyone doing okay this morning? Churchy, what is your name? If you don't mind, what is your name? All right. So good morning, everyone. It feels like Saturday. I don't know if it feels like Saturday to you guys. Thanks for inviting your followers, Mika. But it definitely feels like a Saturday to me. It definitely does. I appreciate that. And I wasn't going to do a scope today because I have a lot going on. I have a funeral at 11. And then I have another appointment immediately following that. And I know I had some other things to do. And I said I wasn't going to be able to scope today. But as I was riding in my car on last night, and God just began to speak with me. And he began to talk to me about marriage. And he said very clearly that he was not concerned about us being happy in our marriage. And I'm like, what? What? What do you mean, God? What do you mean by that? You know? And he just clearly revealed to me that it wasn't about happiness, but that he had a greater purpose for marriage. And I don't know about you guys, but I know that I've often said, you know, a happy wife, a happy life. And I've heard other people say it as well. I'm not sure where it came from, but you know, that's something that's a saying that many people say. And we have said it so much so that we feel as if happiness is what we should be seeking after and what we should be desiring in our marriage. Well, God is saying, no, daughter, I have a greater purpose. Oh my God. So he just began to reveal to me things, and I'm going to share with you just in a bit, you know, about what he's seeking from us, what he desires from us. But, you know, I've been in places in my marriage where I did not feel happy. I mean, if I can be honest with you, it wasn't always necessarily something my husband did or did not do, but there were times that I did not feel happy. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but happiness comes from happenings. It comes from things happening in your life, things happening around you, things just happening. So that's where happiness comes from. You know, if somebody walks up to you right now and give you $1,000, that's going to make you happy, right? If your husband says to you, honey, let me wash your car today, that's going to make you happy. If your son tells you that he just enrolled himself in school all by himself, didn't need any of your help or your assistance, that's going to make you happy. But what do we do when we don't have feelings of happiness? What do we do when we're not overextending ourselves with, gladness and cheer because things are not going our way? How do we deal with those type of feelings? Where does that come in at? When we're not feeling the happiest in our relationships, in our marriage, by way of our husband, when he's not displaying that he's happy even being in the marriage with us, like how do we deal and explain those type of situations? So God was clearly trying to help me to understand that happiness does not come from happiness. That comes from happiness. And I wanted to, I'm going to read something here. And I was basically saying here, most marriages deal with some form or level of miscommunication, financial disagreements, selfish attitudes. That's all across the board. And any of those things, including so much more, will make you feel unhappy. will cause you to feel unhappy. When you're not communicating with your spouse on a regular basis, when you guys don't feel like you're on one accord, you're not happy. When you're having financial difficulties and disagreements, you're unhappy. When, he's acting selfish or you're acting selfish, he's unhappy, you're unhappy. So things happen in the marriage that will cause you to feel unhappy. And I believe that's why God does not want us to rely on happiness, because happiness is like an emotion. And any of you guys know and gals know that are on here, emotions go up and they go down. They are not constant. Emotions are not something that you can lean and depend on. Your emotions are not something that you can trust, because they will go up and down. And as long as they're going up and down, you will feel happy, you will feel sad, you will feel disappointed, you will feel discouraged, you will feel dismayed, you will feel neglected, you will feel abandoned, you will feel rejected. You'll have all of these feelings that are going on, and sometimes even at one time, you'll go through the whole cycle of feelings in one swoop, because things are not going your way. Are you guys hearing me out there? I hope it's not freezing. Let me know if you are hearing me. Now, you may be asking, Treal, well, is it wrong to be happy? Is it wrong to want to feel pleasure in my marriage? Is it wrong for me to have the sustainable, happy marriage? No, it's not at all wrong. But the fact is, God did not call us to be happy. That's not his ultimate goal and desire for our marriage. As a matter of fact, that's not his ultimate goal and desire for our life. I know we say that. I've said it. I've been guilty several times, but that's not the purpose. As a matter of fact, God teaches us in Matthew, he says, what man is there among you who, when his son asks for loaf, will give him stone? Or if he asks for fish, he will give him snake, will he? If you then being evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give what is good to those who ask? So it's not that God doesn't want you to have joy and want you to experience pleasure and want you to have feelings of gratefulness and gratitude. It's not that he wants you to be in a slumber and he wants you to not be fulfilled or sustained, because Matthew tells us that he wants to give us what we desire, right? But in the same token, it's not his overall objective or purpose for us to be in a place of happiness, because happiness comes from happenings. And when the happenings stop, then where is the happiness? Let me know if you hear me out there. Let me know if you hear me. If you're resonating with this, please share. Thanks, Jill, for sharing. Thank you guys for, hey, Delisha. I'm appreciating the hearts now, because I'm asking you to give me some love. I'm showing you some love by showing up today. So I'm asking you to share some love with me. Share some love with me. I want to read Ephesians 5 so we can get an understanding. In a marriage, there's going to be great sacrifices that we're going to have to endure. There's going to be a level of suffering. And when I talk about sacrificing and suffering, I'm not saying that you have to be in this broken, empty, neglected marriage. That's not what I'm talking about. But oftentimes you cannot control the feelings in the doings of another person, and especially an adult, a grown person. And I believe that's why God said, don't depend on happiness, because this person on either side is going to do things or not that's going to cause you to be unhappy. That's going to cause you to feel like you're not happy, like you're not satisfied, like you're not content. But we know that Paul, the Apostle Paul, says that I know what it is to have, and I know what it is to not have. I know what it is to be happy, and I know what it is to not be happy. My God. But whatever state I find myself in, rather in a relationship or otherwise, I've learned to be content. Because I understand that what I need, what I'm desiring, is not going to come from another being. It's not going to come from somebody else, but it's going to come from God. And any of my single women that are on here, whatever you're desiring, whatever you're needing, whatever you're longing for, please understand, it's not going to come from when you get a man, when you get into the marriage. That's not going to come. Yes, there's going to be some levels of satisfaction. There's going to be great benefits as it relates to the marriage covenant, but the happiness and all of those things that you're looking for to be constant in that relationship and marriage, it's not going to be there, because that's not what your husband has been called to do. He has not been called to make you happy. He's not been chosen for that. He's not been selected for that. Ephesians 5 explains this phenomenon by referring to the relationship between Christ and the church. When you get an opportunity, read Ephesians 5. And it says, as the church is subject to Christ, so also the wives ought to be their to their husbands and everything. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. Let's stop there. When it talks about husband loves your wife, and as Christ loves the church, this is not the mushy stuff. This is not, oh, I love you so much. I love everything about you. You're my heartstring. I love the ground you walk on. This is not this. This is talking about love as Christ loves. And if you can be very honest with yourself, many of us have been in a position where we did not want to display that type of love toward our husbands or other people for that matter, because that comes with great sacrifice. That comes with great sacrifice when you're loving someone that sometimes may act unlovable, may seem unlovable, may be disagreeable, may be acting rebellious, and that is on either end, not throwing stones or shade at anybody, because that's on either end. I can recount several times where I was rebellious and I was selfish and I was attitude-ish, as well as my husband. So we can recount those things, but we have to understand that in our marriage, in what we're desiring, it's the love of Christ. It is the love of Christ. Yes. And that's what we have to display toward one another. So what I said, that God has not cheated you out of happiness in your marriage, but he has given you so much more, and he's called you to such a greater purpose. We have to conform to the image of Christ. And that's what he wants us to do. That's what he wants our marriage to look like. I haven't shared with you the one thing yet, but he wants us to conform to his image and his likeness. So let me stop right here, because I'm going to go on. I'm getting excited. So for those that are stopping in, coming through, going to listen to the replay, and I have not introduced who I am, I'm a Treal Ravenel. I'm one of the founders of Detour Movement, where we believe if you renew your mind, you transform your whole life. And speaking of renewing your mind, when you renew your mind, how you feel and think about your marriage, you will be able to transform your marriage. You will be able to transform yourself within that marriage when you begin to think like Christ thinks. When you change your mind from thinking, okay, I got into this marriage because I want to be happy. I got into this marriage because I want him to fulfill me. I want him to satisfy me. I want him to complete me. I want him to sustain me. So when you begin to renew your mind and thinking, and from thinking that to thinking, I got into this marriage because I know that there is a greater purpose. I know that God wants his glory to be manifested. I know God wants to work in and through us through this marriage. I know that he has a deeper calling. It's not about the mushy stuff. It's not about us hugging and kissing and having sex. All those things are benefits to it, but it's so much more, and it's so much greater to that. So I understand, God, that you have not called me to just enjoy and to be happy in this relationship, but you called me to be to a much greater purpose. To a much greater purpose. I don't know if many of you are familiar with the story of Hosea and Gomer, but God had told Hosea to marry a harlot woman, a displaced woman, an unloved woman. And for the life of Hosea, he couldn't understand why God had told him to love this woman and to marry this woman, but he did it anyhow. And even in their marriage, the first couple years was okay, or whatever the case may be. They ended up having a son. I believe his name was Jezreel, and they thought that everything was great and peachy and cream until things started happening in the marriage, and Gomer began to lose her happiness. You guys got to go read the story. Gomer began to lose her happiness. She was no longer in a place where she was all happy and cheery and everything was fine and everything was great and everything was peachy. Gomer began to lose her happiness in the marriage with Hosea. So as a result of that, Gomer decided to do what Gomer wanted to do. And infidelity and all of that stuff occurred because of that. I'm going to do a teaching on that one time. I did one already about a year ago, but I want to talk about that some more, but not right now. But that just goes to show you there'll be moments in your marriage where unhappiness will be at the forefront of it. And it will be so evident, and it will be so clear. And you have to make a decision right then and there if you're going to stay to play or if you're going to walk away. Come on, somebody. If you're going to stay to play, if you're going to walk away, I can tell you, through adultery, through 2 children that Gomer had on Hosea, he decided to stay and play. Why? Because God has called him to a much greater purpose in his marriage. God had called him beyond him feeling happy. Now, I'm not saying to you, stay in a marriage where somebody's cheating on you and having babies and all that, but I'm just using the story as an illustration, because if Hosea and Gomer can go through a marriage and deal with all of that stuff, read that story, honey. If they can deal with all of that stuff, how much more can we get past our feelings of unhappiness when we're disagreeing? when we're not on the same page financially, when we're not on the same page because one of us are acting selfish, when we're choosing to not communicate with one another, how much more do you expect God to cause us or help us to endure? Pastor Allen said it so great. He said, God has not called us to endure hard times, but God has called us to endure hardness. So if you feel like your marriage is going to be this great and awesome and wonderful thing, then I have news for you, because there will be moments where you don't feel so great. There will be moments when you don't feel so happy. There will be moments when you don't feel so satisfied, and you have to get your strength, and you have to get your joy, and you have to get everything that you need, and not from your husband, but from a greater source. From a greater source. Not only so we also glory in our sufferings. This is Romans 5:3-5, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, that produces persistence, diligence, persistence, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. He has called us to endure. He has called us to endure. My God. Because let me tell you something. A lot of times, when we have our marital disagreements and we're up against any level of adversity, if you want to be really honest with yourself, you have the power and the ability to shift that situation by way of your response, by way of your attitude, or by way of your mood. Am I talking or am I talking? Although your husband may be feeling a certain type of way and he may be in his mood or whatever the case may be, you don't have to give into that. You can choose joy. You can choose love. You can choose to allow the glory of God. That means the manifested presence of God to rest on you. And despite of what somebody is doing, how they're acting, what they're saying, how they're showing up, that has nothing at all to do with you. My God. Oh, Lord. Glory to God. So you may be asking, Treal, how am I going to endure? How am I going to endure? Romans 8:28, which was one of my favorite scriptures, it says that God causes all things to work together for the good of them that are called according to his purpose. He causes all things to work together for the good of them that are called according to his purpose. Some of you may be on here and your husbands may not be where you are spiritually, and you may be getting upset. You may be getting frustrated. You may be feeling all type of way, because here you are going to church. Here you are going to Bible study. Here you are having this great prayer life and this study life and this worship life and all of these things. And you see your husband not getting on board. And as much as you desire and as much as you wanted him, as much as you prayed for him to get on board, you still see that he's still lacking. You still see that he's still slacking in several areas, and that's causing you to feel unhappy. That's causing you to feel unsatisfied. That's causing you to feel some discomfort. But what I'm going to tell you is that don't look for that. Don't look for the happiness in that situation, but instead look for the glory. Look for the glory. Look for the manifested presence of God. And I'm also going to charge to you for you to allow the glory of God to show up in you. So despite of him not reading or studying or praying or doing whatever it is that you feel that he should be doing to grow spiritually and to maximize his spirituality, you should not be concerned with that. My sister, God has not cheated you out of happiness in your marriage, but he has given you, he has called you to a much greater purpose. And as I was driving on last night and God was sharing this with me, I couldn't help but to look at my own life and my own marriage and begin to say, okay, God, I understand that there'll be times when I don't feel happy. And as I said before, it's not always something to do with my husband, what he did or what he didn't do, because he's not responsible for that. He's not responsible for my happiness. He's not responsible for my peace. He's not responsible for my joy. He's not responsible for my love. But what I'm responsible for is for allowing the glory of God to manifest in my life and allowing the glory of God to manifest in my marriage. So despite of how I feel happy or not, that's not the issue here. So you're asking me, how am I going to be able to endure, Treal? You say don't endure hard times, but endure hardness. So as I said, the glory of God must be present in your life. And when the glory of God is present, it is a manifested glory that's working in and through you. Grace is present. Grace is present. So if you have not already, please get something to write down these tips. I'm going to give you 5 things. 5 things of how you can endure hardness. How you can understand that I haven't been cheated out of happiness. But God has something greater. He has a greater purpose, and that greater purpose is his glory. God wants the glory out of your marriage. God wants the glory out of your life. So even though you may not feel happy right now, even though you may be totally disgusted right now, even though you may be feeling confused right now, even though you may be feeling ashamed and feeling embarrassed and feeling like you don't understand what is going on right now, that's not his concern. His concern is that he gets the glory. His concern is that his manifested presence is there in your home. So even if your husband is not where he needs to be spiritually, God's manifested presence is available in you and through you, and is shining as a light in your marriage. So if you want to ask me, how do I pray for my husband, or what can I do? I've been doing this, I've been doing that, and he's doing this and he's doing that. What I can tell you on today, that God is concerned about his glory manifesting in your marriage. He wants his glory to be manifested. And that's going to come through grace. The grace of God. Grace is a divine help and strength that we receive through the atonement of the sacrificial death of Jesus Christ. I'm not sure why it's freezing. It was doing this yesterday. I apologize. Hopefully you guys will be able to go back and listen to the replay if it just keeps acting crazy. Grace is present. So when the glory of God, this thing is so personal for me. When the glory of God is present, the grace is present. The divine help and strength that we receive through the atonement or the sacrificial death of Christ is present. That means that your attitude shifts. Your attitude toward the situation shifts. Your attitude toward things not going the way that you feel they need to go shifts. Your attitude towards your husband shifts. This is when you even more so than ever will read and get into your word and deepen your relationship with God. Because the only way the glory is going to manifest is if you spend time with the Father. That's the only way the glory is going to manifest. You praying or you believing it and speaking it is great, but you're going to have to spend time with the Father. You're going to have to deny yourself of worldly things and worldly pleasures, even for a moment. Because some things, as we know, the Bible tells us, come only by way of fasting and by prayer. So the only way you're going to be able to consistently allow God's glory to be present in your marriage is by fasting and praying, and that is by displaying grace. And as believers, we should be fasting and praying on a regular basis. If you're not fasting every week, you should be at least one day out the week for a period of time. You have to deepen your relationship in God so that you can trust that He is in control. So I told you that happiness comes from happenings. And there'll be a lot of things that happen in your marriage that's going to cause you to feel unhappy. But you have to understand that God is in control. You have to trust Him that He is sovereign God and that He cares for you. The number 2 thing of how your glory is going to be, how the glory of God is going to be manifested. Loving unconditionally has to be present. Again, I'm not talking about this mushy stuff. I'm not talking about this new stuff they have going on about love, but I'm talking about the unconditional, the sustaining, the powerful, the stable type of love. I'm talking about the love without conditions. The love without conditions, and in that your behavior shifts. Your behavior shifts. And when you learn to love your spouse unconditionally, you are displaying, you're teaching those that are around you, even your children, how to love unconditionally. Those vows that you went before hundreds and some thousands of people to share of loving for richer or poor, for death, for life, for good or bad. I can't even remember the vows, but you guys know I've heard it several times. I said it even myself, but in this moment, I can't recall. But those vows, even if you made them up yourself, you vow to love past happiness. You vow to love past feeling happy. So in that, you have to understand even when you have children, and for those of you that have small children that are in the home that are watching, they're watching you. They're watching to see if you are allowing the glory of God to manifest in your marriage. As you teach them and tell them how to love and tell them how to forgive their siblings and tell them to get over it, it's not a big deal. And when you're teaching them and you're telling them to share and all of those other things, if you're not doing that, your talking is in vain because they're watching you. They're watching you. The number 3 thing, you have to be on one accord. The glory of God is going to manifest in your marriage when you're on one accord, when you have one agenda and you understand that the only agenda that is present and purposeful is God's agenda for that marriage. In that, your willingness to push and press through shifts. It shifts. Certain things are taken off the table at this point. We're no longer in it for the children. We're no longer in it until one of us feels unhappy, then we walk away. We're no longer in it until we have irreconcilable differences. Those things are taken off the table because you're on one accord. You have one agenda, and it's God's agenda. My God. The number 4 thing. The number 4. Restoration and reconciliation. The glory of God is present and manifested when reconciliation and restoration is present in your marriage. Your willingness to forgive shifts. Your willingness to forgive, it shifts. It goes to another level. It goes to a higher height. God desires for you and your spouse to be reconciled. God is a God of reconciliation. He desires for us to be reconciled one to another. Some of you are spiritually unreconciled with your husbands. Some of you are physically unreconciled with your husbands or irreconciled with your husbands. God has called us to reconciliation. And He's calling you to that today. And the last but not least thing, in order for God's glory to manifest, to be present, you have to be present. You have to show up. You have to make a decision, whether I'm happy or not. Whether I feel like it or not. I'm going to show up. Because I want God's glory to manifest in my marriage. I want God's glory to manifest in and through me. Your willingness to become more like Christ shifts. And I want to read this scripture. If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Matthew 16:24. That's also in Luke 9:23. Voluntary sacrifice is a necessity and is necessary in a Christ-centered marriage. It is a necessity in a Christ-centered marriage. We have to deny ourselves. So in denying ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes that's denying our happiness. Sometimes that's not seeking after happiness, but rather seeking after the glory of God. And I'm not even sure if anyone's on, if it just froze altogether or what's going on.